my buzz. Come here now, Bumblebee, I want you to strut your stuff, you my Bumblebee. And I know your stuff. Ah, sting me, Bumblebee, until I say enough. So that was a short version of Bumble Bee Blues, and that's what I'm going to try to teach you in this lesson. I already did a short lesson on this tune with only an introduction, so one verse, instrumental, and which you could consider as either the introduction or a solo. So in this lesson we'll talk about the accompaniments behind the vocals. And we have two kinds of verses, a standard verse with the standard AAB construction, and one verse with an irregular form. And finally I'll teach you the guitar solo. Now I tapped out the accompaniment and the solo, and for a limited time only you can find a link for the free tap to this lesson. And afterwards, in a few weeks, I will incorporate it in my lesson pack volume 2, where the other lesson of Bumble Bee Blues is also situated. So it pays to subscribe to my channel, so now and then you get a freebie, and well, you're welcome to it. I also would like to take opportunity of this lesson to talk a bit about, and this lesson is a good example of that, about sound production in country blues. How to get a fuller sound by not doing much more than probably what you're doing, but I like to share a few, well, tips and tricks about that. Now we're in standard tuning, and I'm having a capo on the 1st fret, and we'll consider that as the 0 fret, and so when I say, for example, 3rd fret, then it's in fact the 4th fret. I'll change the camera angle and then we'll start with the lesson. The first thing I would like to talk about is about the bass I'm using in this song, and well, I use that most of the time, and it's what they call an open mute bass. You probably heard about the muted bass, where this part of the hand is placed on the bridge and the beginning of the strings there, and you get that muted sound. You can play that monotonic bass or with an alternating bass. And on the other hand, you have an open, where you don't touch the strings except for the, well, to put them in motion, but you don't mute it. Sounds like that. Sounds like that, and it's pretty awful in country blues to play only that way. And an open muted bass is that you first hit and then you mute. So we get it like this. And in this song I mostly hit 3 bass strings. Even when the tab says only this one, I will hit 3 strings, 2, 3 strings, just to get a powerful sound. But you need to mute that afterwards, otherwise it becomes like this, which is again pretty awful. Now yeah, I just wanted to say that I didn't invent the open mute bass, well, those words. I've put a video in the video description, and it's a video by Bernie Pearl, a real veteran player in country blues. He even played with Lightning Hopkins when he was young, so he's been around a couple years. And he made a video and he calls it the secret bass for country blues, because not too many people, well, seem to know it. And well, it's a nice video, just check it out, how someone else explains it as well. So that's important that you study this. And you see my fingers stay on the top of the guitar. It's not like that I'm doing that. So let's start with the arrangement. I'll play it one more time slowly, the first verse. And you'll see in the tab, it starts with the last verse, the last measure of the introduction. And we'll talk about how to incorporate the vocals in the arrangement, because that's also something that is overlooked, I think, in many lessons. I'm not going to teach you how to sing, but where to put the words in the right spots. And so you get a coherent performance where the vocals really fit well with the accompaniment. So let's start slowly. So that first measure starts with one of the typical characteristics of this song. There are about 3, and I'll talk about them later. And the first one is that trill. And sometimes I even let it hang in there just a little bit. So it's long with that. It's almost 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we have in the 4th beat of that first measure a slow slide. It starts on the last beat of, well, not of the last measure of that introduction, and it stops in the first beat of the first measure of the verse with vocals. And this is also a very typical characteristic of this song, the use of that E chord, which is your standard D position moved up 2 frets. And in the key of E, we're used to playing the D7 version, or without the E string, or the E string open. But this one has, which is, well, you don't hear that too much, but I think it's a very nice touch. And I'm hitting the strings hard enough so that the 3rd string also rings. For example, I'm going to mute the first 2 strings and fret the 3rd string. So you hear it rings. And I think the best way, and that's also one of the features I want to tell you about sound production. If you do that with what I call a rigid finger, your finger does simply that, then you're not going to get a fine sound. What I do is this part of the finger will move also. It will cave in like that when I brush up. So it's kind of loose. And if you do that, for example, on the first 2 strings and at the 5th fret the 2nd string, and now rigid, I think there's this distinctive difference, and we're going to see that in the solo also, where we're going to do that like that. So I'm doing that cave in when I hit the strings, and it gives you a dirtier sound, certainly. So, and in the last beat of that first measure, there's a triplet, and I almost always use a triplet when I go from one chord to another, and in this case from the E to the A7. And you see in the tab, in the second measure, number 2, where I go to the A7, you see that the third and the fourth string, where there's a 2 within brackets, it means that I'm hitting the open A string so hard that the other 2 strings below it also ring. So when you do that triplet, you form the chords. So don't play it open, because that doesn't sound good at all. And then we have also in the second and the fourth measure a triplet. And I always play those triplets thumb, index, thumb. And then in the third measure we're going back to E and form the chord after the triplet, where we use open strings. And when you form the chords, the open string become almost hammer-ons in the chord, so the sound is already good for that moment. Alright, the second and the third measure. And you also heard the open mute bass. This is the third characteristic of this song. All the fills are in this style, and you can do, if you listen to the performance video that I did earlier, you will hear several variations, and you can play any variation: open second, third fret, open first and third fret, and always ending. And here, that's the only triplet where I play the melody notes with the index. And there's a reason for that. Also to get a fuller sound, because that's in the last beat of the third measure. I strike up, and so you hear that fifth string, second fret also. If I would do it with the temp, then you can only hear that fourth string, which gives you a thinner sound. So, and after that again, the full chords. Okay, and also notice that when I play those single string runs, I mute the bass. I don't play the open mute bass, but I mute it. So there's no distraction from the single string runs, and it pops more out then. And here in the fourth measure, where we go to the E7, this one is short. There's a little Chinese hat above the note, and it means that I cut it short, and I cut it short by simply moving my pinky a little bit, so. And the second one, where the third fret of the second string, I slightly bend it and let it ring into the next beat. So that was the first measure back in A7, and here after the triplet, and you form the chords, the A7, then I leave the chords, so in the middle of the first beat of the fifth measure, and I put my second finger or third finger, doesn't matter which one, on the first string, third fret, and I bend it. And you see in the tab there are little X's on the second line, the second string. I don't fret the string, but because I'm bending it, I'm gonna touch that string, and it's gonna give, well, not a full fretted sound, but sometimes a fretted sound. So it's an accidental sound. Even the third string is allowed to ring slightly, not openly. But don't fret it, because then the second string will sound equally hard as the first string, and then it sounds not good. That's not the best. I'll show you how it sounds if I only bend the string and don't play the second. It's much thinner. And I even I hit so hard, and with that non-rigid index finger, that the third string would also ring, and I mute it so, usually with my index here. So, and then the last beat we have that very quick. I'll call with the temp. And that sixth measure is exactly the same as the second measure. And again with those two triplets. For the second beat you can also do the triplet on the third string instead of the second string. I sometimes do it, sometimes I don't. And then we have, that's a variation of, so you can do this also if you really like that, for the seventh measure. Again, that upstroke with the index, the last part of that beat, of that triplet. So we have that fifth string ringing as well. And in that eighth measure, although the tab says, I hit it so hard that the second string also rings, the second open string. Again a triplet, temp, index, temp. And you can do that either with your third finger or with your pinky. And the ninth measure, where we go to the B7, so we have that triplet, slide into the chord, upstroke the second part of the first beat, and hard enough that fourth string also rings. It's in the tab under parentheses. And the second beat, well, it's not a triplet, I don't know how to call it, but it's but in one beat. Now if you're not able to do that, you can do a triplet and simply sixth string, second string, fifth string. Or, and this first beat, let it ring into the next beat. And that bend with your pinky. And in the last beat I hit with my index and middle, like that, and then upstroke with the index and thumb the fourth string. And it's kind of muted afterwards. That's also where you can see that I don't anchor my hand always. So you can play this kind of things. If your hand is anchored with your pinky on the fret on the top, then you're not able to do those little strums. Again, that 10th measure is exactly the same as the 2nd and the 6th, I believe. All those measures in A, for example, or in E, where we do the trill, for example, that the verse with the trill, well, the measure with the trill, the first one. You can use that also in to replace the 8th measure, where we do. You can do. And then in the 11th measure, we have again a single string run. And I mute the bass there. Again, index, index, index. And hard enough so that the 5th string rings as well. And then we have the 12th measure, which is the first, well, exactly as the one on top of the page, the first one. Okay, now I'll talk a bit about the vocals. And they start on the last measure of the introduction, on the 2nd half of the 3rd beat. So I'll play it and sing it where you can hear it. Bumble bee, bumble bee, please come back to me. So it starts on that open E string, and you see that we've done all the Bumble Bee singing before we go into this phrase. Bumble bee, please come back to me. Bumble bee. And again, the 2nd line, where we do the same thing as in the first line, Bumble Bee, starts on the open E string, the 3rd beat of the 4th measure. Bumble bee. And you see, the words fall on beats. Bumble bee. These are really key notes, and they support your singing. Bumble bee, please come back to me. You got a best old stinger, any bumblebee I ever seen. I wrote down some of the words, some of the key words in the tab on the right spot, so they start just where they are written. And as you've seen, the last phrase, where we go to the B7, also starts on the 3rd beat, the 2nd half of the 3rd beat, the open E string. You got a best old stinger. The stinger is really on that bend. Stinger, any bumblebee I ever seen. So that's what in the tab for the next verse. And well, the open mute bass is here very prominent. And there I hit again with my index and middle down. And I tilt the chord a bit so that the 1st string is muted And when I hit down, this part of my hand will hit the 3 bass strings, or at least the 2. So you form that A chord. You can also do a bar. Some people do it like this, with the 3rd finger or the 1st finger, it doesn't matter, as long as you get the job done. So you need to practice a bit to get the right sound. And the open, it's a triplet, down, index, thumb, and after that, beginning of the 14th beat measure, I form the E chord and I do a little hammer on with the 3rd string. You see, if I don't hit the bass, you hear this. I hit the bass. And in the last, well, in the 16th measure, we don't do the, but we go into the 4th fret, 5th string, and with triplet. And we form the A chord. And I do a sort of double bass there in the 2nd beat. And it's not a triplet, but triplet would sound like, but it's like that. And I mute after I do that. After, I'll play it again. Then I mute it. Okay, and the rest of that verse is exactly the same as the first verse, and you can hear that at the beginning of the video how it sounds. By the way, I also put in the video description the lyrics, and if you Google the lyrics of Bumble Bee Blues Memphis Mini, for example, you're gonna get a lot of answers, because Memphis Mini made several versions and other players as well. And my version is also based on, especially on, I think, Man's Lipscomb playing, where he also has that very strong bass. Now I'll play it once more and with vocals, so you can hear where those words fit. And we start with a 12th measure. Well, I can't stand to hear her buzz, buzz, buzz. Come here now, Bumblebee, I want you to strut your stuff, you my bum. Oh, no. Strut your stuff, you know. I'm gonna do it again. I was a bit wrong in that 16th measure. Here we go. Well, I can't stand to hear her buzz, buzz, buzz. Come here now, Bumblebee, I want you to strut your stuff, you my bumblebee. And I know your stuff. That's also different than that. And it's tapped out in the solo where I do the same thing. So I simply slide to the 5th fret, slide back to the 3rd fret, and this one you know by now. For example, in the 11th measure, the last beat is exactly the same. Also with that loose finger, and I'm hitting it so hard that the 3rd string would ring, and that's open string, that string is open. So I slightly move up my fretting finger so it touches the third string so it doesn't ring. Alright, that's it for the vocal part. Let's play the solo now. I'll play it one more time as slow as possible. And we'll start, of course, with the previous measure. So we're sliding up to the 7th and the 9th fret on the 1st and the 2nd string, and that's an E chord. And we do triplets, and again I'm hitting the string so hard that the 3rd string would ring, and you need to mute that one. Otherwise you get a sound like this, which is not agreeable. So just put your finger, which is on the 9th fret 2nd string, a little bit higher, and it touches the 3rd string so it mutes it. And you can play it either stationary, stay on that fret, or you can slide into that chord every time the triplet begins. So 7th and 9th frets, 4 beats, and then we're going back to our E chord at the 4th and 5th fret. And again hit hard enough so you have that 3rd string 4th fret also ringing. And then back again to the 7th and 9th fret. And then to the 10th and 12th fret. And the last beat we have a triplet. I add the pinky to the 12th fret, open, and the 4th string open, and we're going to the A chord. And you notice that I'm playing there, well, I'm trying to play just in front of the beat. It's tapped out, of course, on the beat, well, but I'll try to demonstrate it. I can't do it always, but I'll try it. It's well, you have to feel that. It's difficult to teach that. Try to do it as it is in the tab and try to experiment with it. That's the best thing to get new things done. So the 5th measure of the solo, where we go to that A chord, and I don't fret the chord, just this. The variation of. Again, I'm muting here. And here, in the 7th measure, 1st beat and the 2nd beat, I hit and go upwards with my index and middle fingers. And the trick is, of course, to hit and mute all the other strings, and that's, you're gonna do that with your palm here. And if you don't put enough palm on it, you hear this one gonna ring too, and that's not a good sounding. No, like this. And the next beat, I do this exactly the same thing, but I bend the 3rd string on the 3rd fret. And then I do, well, I wrote in the tab a nail hit. It's like flicking a piece of paper. You've done that in school probably. And it's like. the first hit is hammer on and pull off, and then I hit it when it's open again. And you're going to hit some other strings as well, but that's not a big deal. It's fast enough so that if you hit a wrong string, it's more a percussive effect that you get. So I'll try to play it one more time. And then we have a riff which is typical Lightning Hopkins. He had a way of avoiding the B7 chord there. And so you play the B7 only for 2 beats, and the rest is that lick before it. So one more time slowly. And I play that with the index, also this note. Index, middle, index. That's a quick, because you have to, it's double bass and this in between. Again, the whole thing. You should see that open A string as a walk into the chords. It belongs almost to the next beat, but it's not in reality. Another thing he did at the same spot is second and third fret on the first and second string and bend the second string. Alright, the whole thing once more. And here, where we go to the A, and this is played really short, and the fretted third fret second string is kept short because after that, after picking it, I remove my finger and then I play the open E string, and there I put my middle finger on it after I picked it to mute it. And that also with the index. And we've seen that in the previous verse. Hit it hard enough so the third string rings as well, but muted it by moving up your fretting finger. And I did this riff also to end the song. So. With an E chord. And no picking here. I do a similar ending, I think, in the video Bring It to a Higher Level, which is a very interesting video, by the way, with free tap. Wow. So I think that's it for Bumble Bee Blues, and I hope you enjoy that song. And well, keep tamping away.